with some notes that I had.
Great. I just wanted to make sure I had
Yeah.
all that I need.
I brought it from home.
Falling out of that.
I'm online and I'm here for
We are alive.
Yay. Well, welcome everybody and good afternoon. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the City of Salem Climate Action Plan Committee for Monday, April 20th, and it's 1:03 p.m. I am Mickey Varney and I'm the chair of the committee, and the other committee members here, please introduce yourselves.
Counselor Nishioka, Ward 2.
Shane Matthews, Ward 3.
Thank you. Thank you. And let's just go around the table real quick for folks that maybe can't see all of you. Staff, could you introduce yourselves?
Jason Foley, Public Works. Brian Martin, Public Works.
Janelle Valdez, Public Works Staff Assistant.
Juliana Douglas, Climate Action Plan Manager.
Heidi Miller, Outreach Coordinator, Center 50+.
Meredith Greer, Public Works.
Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. Well, let's get started. Just thinking, oh my goodness, it's almost Earth Day, isn't it? A couple more days. So first of all, public comment. I didn't notice. No one signed up for public comment.
We
Is
need
there?
to do the minutes first.
Oh, well,
Approval of agenda and approval.
right. Okay, I'm just bouncing around here. Sorry about that. All right. Are there any changes to the agenda that anyone would like to offer? Any additions?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Then could I have a motion for approval of the February 17th meeting minutes?
I move to approve the February 17th meeting minutes.
I guess I'll second it.
I'm the only option.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the motion passes, so the minutes are approved. Okay, now, public comment. Is there anybody online? Okay. All right, well, moving forward, action and discussion items. So first of all is the home energy assessment for senior homes. I'm very excited to have you here to talk about this and, right? Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, I'm throwing you a little bit of a wrench because I'm gonna give you a little broader story than what we started off with. But it is true that we have been at Center 50+ have been working hard on addressing climate resiliency with our constituency. So you wanna talk that over? I made a kind of generic slide set, so we'll see. Is it a clicker or a roller?
Yeah, you can.
Let's see if I can click. There we go. All right, so you all know Center 50+. Whoop whoop, we're celebrating our 50th anniversary. So 50 and 50 is pretty cool. But we recognize that we've been a trusted community hub since 1976. We were on Portland Road where the Salem Clinic was this, is now. And in 2008, we moved to our current building. It's still state of the art and has been recognized nationally for its outreach and just really embracing. We kind of like to geek out on all things older adult wise. So that's so we have a number of different models. We have our 7 dimensions of wellness, which Ball University established. It allows us to kind of consider the whole person as we're aging. It's an active aging model. So that can be everything from social well-being to physical well-being to intellectual, spiritual, the whole 9 yards. And the most important thing there is that if we take, say, social well-being and take it out of this kind of, I don't know, it reminds me of the comic symbol, right? You pull it out, pull it into a continuum. Every class and activity and outreach that we do at the center takes that dimension, pulls it into this plane from 1 to 10, negative to positive, despairing to hope. And we want to orient folks toward hope. One little step at a time, often, but that's the key to our success. So that's one of our geekier things. In 2018, we led the initiative for Salem to become an age-friendly community. We are an age-friendly community, and what that means is that we are growing and learning and leaning into what that means. It's never going to be done, right? So currently, in our action plan, we are looking at housing and we are looking at community spaces in particular. All right. So there we go. That's really where outreach comes in. Most people, when they come to the center, they're coming with an intention. They're coming to learn something, to create something, or to connect with others. And we're a target for that, right? They're coming through the doors knowing that. When I go out into the community, though, folks might not have such focused intention around those things. And those things are what animate us and give us purpose in life as we're getting older. And so a few years back during COVID, we launched our Wellness on Wheels van, which really is a mobile senior center, and it became nationally recognized by our National Council on Aging, our National Senior Center. We won an award, only 7 being delivered throughout the nation and on innovation. And so what the key of that award and what we're up to is all about is that we're bringing, we're a center without walls. We're moving out into the community, offering those program areas of respite, of fitness, lifelong learning and outreach where people live, so that they can get a taste of those offerings. And yes, hopefully come back to the center, but if they don't have the ability or they live way out south or whatever, that they're discovering how to build community in their immediate neighborhood. That's why we're popping up in parks and neighborhood and community spaces, and often focusing on locations where people are least likely to come in to the center, right? So this is a great, just little montage of the sorts of things that we've been up to these last few years. The Wellness on Wheels van, we really make an effort to hit all parts of Salem in that summer campaign. If you don't know about zucchini races, you haven't been around. Because we've been doing that over at Inglewood Forest Festival and Saturday markets. Now I think this will be our 4th year. But we are popping up, like I said, in unexpected places with fitness, in our community settings, and that unfortunately it's blocked, but you have a great picture of us all hiding under our canopy with a flash rain last summer at the NOLA neighborhood of Montgomery. So really what a neighborhood with walls, or a senior center without walls, means is that we're moving building centric and program centric to people centric, right? So we're doing that with those pop-up programs. We're partnering with local communities, and we're turning spaces into places of connection. And this last year, and this is really where we start rolling into our climate stuff, but this last year we decided that we wanted to reach out to our 2255 and over mobile home parks. Our initial goal this year is 12. And building trust and relationships in those places. But what I want to focus on here is that in those 22 mobile home parks, there are 2,333 spaces. That's approximately, you can pretty comfortably double that number for individuals that we might reach. There's over 30% of homeowners in those parks who are 65 and over. And by, and back last February, we did a series of focus groups with older adults living in these communities. And what that revealed is that over half had no savings for repairs. And while others only had like $3,000 to $4,000 set aside, right? But 80% expressed a desire to make energy efficient upgrades within the next 5 years. But they lack the means to do it. There's also besides just a financial barrier, there's also some barriers that come with aging. Maybe it's their, tech literacy, maybe it's their capacity to regulate emotionally when you've got a lot of overwhelm with papers and processes and steps and things like that. So what we recognized is that we needed to be able to help folks navigate these systems better. And that really is about building relationships and building continuity and trusted pathways for learning and for improving those homes. And so in September, we launched our Connection Kitchen, which is a food truck that delivers a hot noontime meal and micro programming, whether it's in fitness or outreach or in energy efficient issues to residents who live there. That's one of our meals, pretty sexy.
Colorful, yeah.
Yeah. But here's why are we doing this? Well, it's because things are changing, right? We're seeing increasingly hot summers and colder winters, and these weather patterns are becoming less predictable. And when we see that in Oregon, about 38% of the manufactured homes in Oregon are built before 1979. That means that these homes are more likely to be in need of repair. They don't have energy efficient systems, and they need and the owners of them need support in order to age in place. And I want to emphasize that this is a huge piece of our housing inventory in Salem. Yes.
When you were looking at their age, were you also investigating which ones had asbestos? Because many of them do, and it's very hard, even if somebody wants to remodel or do something with their unit. If it has asbestos, they can't.
Exactly. And so there are, we're working with the Environmental Health and Resiliency Coordinator over at Marion County, and also with the Oregon Health Authority with their community health improvement plans, so that we can be a part of understanding those barriers and how to assist. We've had replacement programs in the past in Oregon that served many people who were struggling with that. So we're hopeful that as we move forward and we start learning those relationships and how to advocate for our folks, that we can bring that, the input of Salem residents to the state.
And I'll just say that I know that some folks that have been in their mobile home for some time that are older units, they're finding that they can't even sell them. So then they have no assets if they're trying to move somewhere else. And that it's costing anywhere from $25,000 to $45,000 to abate it. And so then they're responsible for doing that, and they don't have the funding.
Exactly. Yeah. And we're discovering the same things, and we're also, and when you add to the cost of mobile homes, many folks who own their mobile home outright, that they have a plot that they are paying for, and those are becoming
Too costly
as well. But again, back to our climate issues, you all know this because this is your committee, But back in 2024, we had 38 days above 90, more extreme heat, growing risk to those vulnerable populations. And since 2018, algae bloom, wildfires, ice storms, all of these things. Now imagine living in a mobile home that is older, that is not climate resilient, that doesn't have adequate heating or cooling. And that's what we're talking about, is wanting to help folks with that. And, when, as we've looked at funding models and things like that, we did go out for the Thriving Communities grant last year. We weren't successful. It was a very competitive grant. But what we learned was that with one of their models was that 57% of Salem represented disadvantaged communities in this model related to climate. And that older adults were, at the heart of that, right? And of course, manufactured homes, they have higher exposure and lower efficiency. So we looked at our trusted programs and we decided to put them on some steroids, right?
Okay.
And so we have our WOW Van and Connection Services. We have our Fix It Brigade, which is a 40-plus-year-old outreach. It used to be back in the day that we had these, retired tradesmen and others that had skills that, and it was a raise your hand kind of culture. I can do that. Great, I need help. And that's the handoff. We have liability considerations and other things that we have to be more careful of these days. So we're wanting to modernize our Fix It Brigade program for the current, realities of the time. So that means a lot more partner development. I couldn't help but to do this. This is from this weekend. And those are all little Salem Rotary folks out there. And what they're doing is they're the brawn behind our service days, helping those older adults in our mobile home parks getting ready for the warmer months ahead and taming the growth. But Rotary, Habitat for Humanity, they have a senior repair program. We're partnering with them more and more with referrals. We have other programs we'll be talking about in a moment, but stronger support systems are needed. We can offer the one-on-one hand-holding support that a business or a nonprofit or an agency often can't. We can train our volunteers up to be that support and that consistency through the process. We can partner with Seeds for the Soul, Marion County, Electrify Oregon, and others to make sure that people are aware of energy and climate incentives. And we can ultimately lean into our superpower, which is that personalized, hands-on support. So that means home assessments. We just finished a round of, kind of an awareness campaign, bringing Seeds for the Soul home assessment program. It's an Oregon Energy Trust initiative out to all of those residents that we've been visiting with the Connection Kitchen. And we've made over a dozen, contacts. We didn't get the best information for this meeting, but we'll continue to do it. And we're hopeful that that more people will sign up and get those assessments. The beautiful thing about that home assessment program is that yes, there are income-based incentives available, but anyone who is a homeowner in a manufactured home can get that assessment. And that means that you can plan. Even if you can't, you're outside of the funding guidelines, you can still learn how to prioritize what your projects are. So we're really excited about those partnerships. Electrify Oregon is another partner through Seeds for the Soul that we want to work with to help people understand what electrifying their home and really leaning into those incentives can mean for them. And all of these folks, there's a few of our folks from Seeds for the Soul and from Electrify Oregon. There's Michael over there. But this was from our first energy fair last summer, Energy and Resource Fair. It was so exciting. We had over 20 folks or agencies and nonprofit partners come and provide that resource fair. We even had Capital Auto Group come out and bring their EVs so that they could look at things. And when everything was said and done, we had about 170 folks that came through the door. And we'll be doing it again this year in June, but this time we're gonna bring we're bringing it into a half-day format. We'll have a breakfast offering in the morning, and we'll have some education from PG&E who just signed up to give a class, and we're really excited about how that's developing. I like to think of this really as an initiative that falls under our Villages Network umbrella. It's about training up our volunteers and our neighbors, that are hyperlocal, to support one another and to help people age in place successfully. And that's another superpower of ours, is training, right? And peer mentoring. And emergency preparedness education has been a fundamental building block for the center for years. We talk about energy or emergency preparedness about this time of year when we're looking at the weather changing, and in the fall as we're looking at the weather changing again to colder temperature. So it's a natural fit for us to just bring in a more intentional lens around climate resiliency and energy efficient.
So when do you provide that information? Just at certain times of years or
Well, it's
activities or
always there, but
events?
there's always an intention as we're moving into,
Okay.
like this service month
Mhm.
is crazy. We're all over the place right now, but this is all about making sure that folks get in front of the weeds that can cause a problem with fire hazards later on down the road. And we're also handing off that information that do you have, what you need to be healthy in the warmer months and what resources. So that's happening.
Okay.
And ultimately, we're helping folks improve their quality of life. Because aging in place is more than housing, and obviously, we want to live, everyone wants this. 80% of adults uniformly say, we want to live in our own home. We want to be independent. We want to be able to rely on friends and family when a concern arises, right? This is what aging in place means. But animating it and making that a reality and having a trusted resource that gives the guideposts, doesn't talk down, doesn't say this is what you have to do, but says, come on, we're going to come up alongside you. We're going to do this together. That's what Center 50 Plus does.
Thank you for providing that information about emergency preparedness, especially work that they can do or have done around their homes. And not to overburden you, but more out of curiosity, because your center is amazing at getting volunteers. I'm wondering, I have a focus on trying to help people get prepared for emergencies. I'm wondering if there's opportunities, especially as school lets out, for some of your volunteers to seek out kids that could maybe come and help as a volunteer job to trim away bushes around not only mobile homes, but senior homes completely, just so that we can have more available work without overburdening the volunteers that you already have.
Yeah, I love that. And we have a new volunteer outreach coordinator, something that we haven't had before. Chris, he's doing a fabulous job partnering with our schools. I showed you Rotary, but if it was last week, it would have been Sprague students out there. So we are making an intentional, part of villaging is about creating an awareness around what it means to be a good neighbor and what neighboring looks like. We have a teen internship program that Salem Kaiser School District has come on board. They're going to give us their students a half credit to participate this summer. And if they are a rising junior, they can come back for another half credit next time. So that's definitely, the idea is, what does it mean to be a neighbor? How can we connect to create age-friendly communities at a hyper-local level? These students are interning in their immediate neighborhood, not far flung. It's who's next door or across the street. And so some of the low-hanging fruit that becomes visible is the yard that needs to be mowed and other things. So we
Yes.
definitely see that happening as we go forward. And we're always looking, as you can see, to have new partners. So if you have ideas, bring them to me. We'll see what we can do about getting it going. Certainly, always, we're asking for your support and sending community partners who are sympathetic to what we're doing our way so we can connect with them. And finally, there it is. Saturday, June 27th, we will have our energy and resource fair.
And will we get flyers for this in our mailboxes? I'm just curious because
Yes, you will.
I may forget about it.
Yeah.
Before that happens.
Yes, you'll get flyers in your inbox. We're just wrapping up some of our partner donations. PG&E just came on board. I'm hoping for a couple more so we can pay for that breakfast. And there's my contact information. Please reach out anytime.
Wow. Great presentation.
Thank
Oh my gosh. You're such a community treasure, Center 50 Plus is.
And just to sing Heidi's praises, she when I came to her being like, hey, we could do a lot with climate and with how it impacts seniors, she took that on as her own personal mission, and she's been running with these initiatives, and it's been amazing to see her get so involved and help seniors have access to so many resources that we as like a sustainability community don't do the best job in connecting them with the programs. And so Heidi has filled that really essential gap that we knew that we were missing. And so it's been phenomenal to work with her, and she's always so helpful, so kind, and so positive. It's been amazing.
Well, thank you. But I have to say that I've been working with older adults in Salem for over almost 25 years. And our older adult community, they don't just have a need. They have invested in Salem and want to continue to invest in Salem. So recognizing that there's more work to do, we have lots of volunteers who are ready to jump in. We just need to know where to place them and how to motivate them and keep them engaged. And it's Volunteer Appreciation Week, so hug the next volunteer you see.
Wow, so that I have a better understanding, one of the questions I had was on the home assessments. What are the criteria for individuals to qualify to have those done?
You know, the income thresholds, we haven't paid so much attention with that
Okay.
because we've been just getting folks signed up for that home assessment.
Okay.
But they are incentives that are made available through Oregon Energy Trust.
Okay.
Energy Trust of Oregon. And I know that some income thresholds at the lower level, it's a complete replacement or addition of a heat pump.
Mhm.
That system is available. And then they also, Seeds for the Soul has a program where they're able to offer 0% financing to support someone at a higher level. What's interesting about their funding model is that it's not based on income, it's based on a debt to credit ratio, which sometimes for older adults works a lot better.
Wow, that's great.
just to interject real quick, the home energy assessments are free.
Yes.
And they aren't based on income. Anyone
Okay.
can receive them.
Okay, I
Yeah.
was just curious. Yeah. Questions? Go ahead.
And this kind of jumps off Councilor Ishioka's question or comment about just, especially as these older manufactured homes and parks, they're really almost impossible to get financing for generally. So anything older than 76, doesn't matter if the thing's in perfect condition and fully remodeled, in every way feels like a new home. It still can't be financed by almost any traditional lender that does manufactured homes. And so I guess my question is like when we're going through and we're looking at the home energy assessments and where to invest the money, I understand that for the current person that's living there, it's valuable for their utility bills. I guess my concern is that we're like offering things like zero interest financing for different projects that they're taking on a debt on an asset that in the end, they will not be able to sell and they'll lose the money and possibly not be able to pay back the actual cost. And so I guess, what is kind of the balance there, I guess, to make sure that we're not leveraging someone's home that eventually actually isn't able to support this leverage?
Yeah, so they are familiar with manufactured homes, and so they don't do investments that aren't investable. They have programs for complete replacements. And so what you're talking about, that would probably be qualifying under that complete replacement, and how much they funded it is based on income. So there might be some people who fall through the crack who make too much money that they couldn't get a full home replacement. And then by and large, that's the program that they would probably push on that.
Okay, so they would actually replace the entire home. Oh, wow,
Wow,
that's an incredible.
that's fantastic.
Go buy a mobile.
I know, I'm gonna start buying manufactured homes.
We have had a replacement program in the past, and I know that those who are in the know are working hard to secure additional funds.
Yeah,
Sure.
Maybe the current climate politically on a national level isn't one where we're going to see that right away. But
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
So in the interim then, because we're still working on doing the energy trust piece, because that part's all still there. Is that the program that offers the no money financing? So with that, do they do any type of assessment just to make sure that we're not leveraging these older adults farther than what their home is worth?
well, so the energy assessment, the assessors are trained to look at home systems, but also to recognize where it's not in the best interest for the homeowner, you know, so. And what's really important here is that the home assessors, they don't have skin in the game with a company.
Right.
So once they say, they recognize, oh, you might qualify for a heat pump or maybe some weatherization or window or whatever it might be, then Energy Trust of Oregon has professional contractors that they partner with. So there's a good guy, warm handoff
Gotcha.
in that process.
Oh, that's great. Any additional questions?
I have never heard of Seeds of Soul. I'll have to look that up. I hadn't heard of it before.
Yeah, well, come to the Energy Resource Fair.
I will.
I will.
I took a
Yeah.
picture of the
Yeah,
demo.
there's a lot of really great programs out there that will be represented.
Let the neighborhood associations know too.
Yep.
Sure will. Well, thank you. So much. Moving on, goal 5, phase 1 findings is next on our agenda. Wonderful to see the natural resources inventory moving forward.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I know this has been a long time coming.
Sorry, let me share.
If some of you were here in 2023, I think we came to you for the first time and presented this. Things move a little bit slowly, but we're excited to actually have an update to provide today, and then next steps about how we're going to be moving through this process. While Julie only doing that, my name is Meredith Greer. I'm the Natural Resources Planning Manager. This is going to be part land use policy, part science background. It'll be a little bit dense. There's far more text on my slides than I would normally do, but please feel free to jump in and ask questions as we go along if you've got them. So, we're here to talk today about goal 5. Goal 5 is a little bit of a confusing name. Folks aren't quite sure, is it a city goal? What is it? It's a statewide goal, but we're gonna refer to it in things that we are putting out to members of the public. We're talking about it more like we're planning a work for here. So a little bit of what is goal 5. The whole concept of goal 5 is coming from a statewide planning level. So there are 19 different statewide planning goals that the state of Oregon put together back in the 70s. This was in response to.
And we're all the way to 5.
Yeah, we have done, we've kind of cherry picked our way through them. There are other goals and things that have been taken care of. Salem just hadn't completed goal 5 prior to this, but they're all in response to kind of rapid growth within the state. So wanting to make sure, as we've got all these folks coming in new areas and industries, how can we make sure that we have communities that are livable, that we're protecting our natural resources, and we're providing kind of guidelines for industries. So the state of Oregon came out with goal 5, which goes over riparian, which goes over natural resources, scenic and historic areas, and open spaces. Now, what this actually means for Salem saying that we're going to be doing a goal 5 process is kind of a 2-part phase. The first one, and the one led by my group in natural resources planning, is going over a local resources inventory. So I'm here today to kind of present on the halfway point in this process. We finished our phase 1, and we'll be moving in for the rest of the year into a phase 2 project that's being led by community planning and development that is much more, we're updating code language to actually work on protecting these areas. So today it's all about what did we actually find and how did we do that. So we're talking about riparian corridors broadly. We're talking about streams, we're talking about wetlands next to streams, and we're talking about riparian areas. So to help kind of visualize this, and as you might know, Salem has a ton of streams running through it. So we're thinking about a riparian corridor, we're thinking about the stream that goes down, we're thinking about wetlands, which often occur right next to a stream, right above where we kind of get normal, ordinary high water. And then we're talking about the riparian area on either side of that. Collectively, we refer to this as the riparian corridor. Now, why are we interested in deciding to inventory these, plan for them, and help protect them? Well, one is it helps protect them on a local level. National and state regulations can change at times. If we're protecting them on a city level, we're helping to make sure that we are doing things in a way that makes sense, that fits in with other rules and regulations we have, especially around areas like our floodways. And so it really helps to kind of paint that whole picture that clicks together for Salem. That's huge, especially in Salem for people like future developers. If you want to come in and you're looking at a piece of land, it's really helpful to know, okay, what rules and regulations are there right now that I can help plan for? Some of this upfront work, like determining where wetlands are, helps to provide more information for developers coming in about what's going on a certain parcel. It also helps to safeguard a lot of our riparian corridor functions. And these are huge functions that tie really nicely in with a lot of our climate action goals, and even our result area goal toward natural resources sustainability and stewardship. We're working on improving water quality. We're helping to reduce local flooding. Riparian areas help provide for habitat for fish and wildlife. They also serve as wildfire breaks, which is really important, especially as we're thinking, and I've heard, getting a drier climate and these things are more of a risk. They also help reduce bank erosion, increase groundwater recharge, and overall, they're just awesome aesthetic value for this area. Not only just being able to look at them, but also being able to recreate in them outdoors. These kind of all work together to provide a really kind of key cog in our natural resources portfolio as a city. Being able to do this kind of riparian corridor inventory also provides us with invaluable data. We didn't have a clear set of here are all of the streams in Salem, here are our local wetlands. Being able to do this process and have that means that now the city is working on the same level of maps. You know, our department is looking at the same maps that other departments are, and we've got that kind of unifying thing. It also allows us to understand better the functionality and health of a lot of these areas, which was kind of unknown to begin with. And it helps satisfy our statewide planning goal number 5. So what this process actually looked like. It was a multi kind of step and phase project, which is why we came here 3 years ago, and now it's taken us this long to get there. But this started with contracting this work out with the consultant Pacific Habitat Services, who've done about half of all Goal 5 inventories in the state. Salem's actually one of the last cities in the state who has done this kind of work. And so there have been numerous other cities that Pacific Habitat Services has helped with. This also started with a lot of outreach done by city staff to kind of request access from private property owners to be able to get on their sites. As you can see on the map here, we have a number of different waterways that run throughout the entire city. Over 3,000 of the parcels that our streams run through are private property. In order to be able to understand what's going on the ground, we went out and we asked members of the public, if you've got a stream site behind you, would you be willing to let Pacific Habitat come on site, take a look at your stream, potentially do some tests to see if there's wetlands? We got over 140 yeses from folks. And actually, because Salem is already pretty built out, a good number of the field work was able to be done on city property, looking onto potentially private property. You know, we've got so many bridges here, you can stand, you can take a look and things like that. The next kind of step in this whole process was a desktop inventory. There's a number of different state and federal agencies that we use that have been collecting data for years and years and years. And so we went through and we got stream data and we got fish bearing status. That's really important for us because there's a good connection between Oregon Fish and Wildlife and what we're doing in terms of Salem things. That creates a pretty big distinction between where are fish in our creeks and where are areas that don't have fish. And that's kind of what the map ends up showing, just for a little bit of a visual on this. We also, especially in the past 20 or so years, the state's been doing a really good job of mapping wetlands. And so if you've come in and you've developed a property in the last 20 years, and it's got a wetland on site, you'll have to do a wetland delineation. The state needs to approve that. And so they had a layer of here are the wetland files. It doesn't count for everything. We've had a bunch of properties that have developed since, but it's a good starting point for us. That led us into field work. And this was all completed mostly during the summer time period last year, where we had a number of boots on the ground who were going out and they were taking a look at these areas. They were walking streams, they were checking wetlands. And when they're checking wetlands, they need to make sure that they're kind of the three main components you need for wetland. You need to have the right amount and quantity of water. You need to make sure you've got plants that like that amount of water, and you need specific soils that are found in wetlands. And so they're doing all three of those things. And they went through with each one of their wetlands and did a really specific kind of assessment. The goal was to be able to determine if the wetland is considered locally significant. The idea being there is that certain wetlands are providing a really high level of function. We want to make sure that we're protecting those extra. After all of this, there's a huge level of GIS work that went into capturing all this data, mapping all of this data. And what we're doing right now is we're partway through that inventory review process. Because this is such a new and dynamic thing that will require some level of code language, we decided to convene a riparian advisory committee. The first meeting of the riparian advisory committee was back in November. The committee is made up of 2 city council members, Councilor Barney and Quinn. We've got 2 members of the planning commission, as well as other community members, both with more of a development and housing focus and those with an environmental focus, to really be the group that we kind of walk through this process with and run code language by. We want to make sure that we're striking that right balance between providing enough information and clarity while also protecting the environment while we're doing it. We have a public meeting coming up on May 7th in Laux Auditorium. We're going to be going through kind of a larger scale. What is goal 5? What did our inventory find? And allowing members of the public, especially those members who engaged with us early on, who said, yes, you can come on my property, an opportunity to see, here's what we found, and here's what we're doing. I'm doing with the information. Once we finish with that public meeting, we plan on having another riparian advisory committee meeting sometime this summer in order to present, here's kind of our idea of some draft code language. All of that is going on while the Department of State Lands, which is kind of the state function that reviews all of these reports, is going through their review of our documents, and they'll be the ones who need to give us approval for this work. So a little bit of what did we find? Overall, between desktop analyses and field work, we ended up looking at almost 7,000 acres of land. What we found was that 113 miles are considered fish bearing. So that is a ton of streams just within the city limits. Of that, about 75% of them were fish bearing. So that's a huge amount of area where fish are currently at. And that number is likely to change depending on projects that we end up doing. So sometimes they're not fish bearing because there's a culvert that doesn't let fish pass. Because we're required to, as we do projects, upgrade culverts, that area of number of miles of fish bearing streams will very likely increase. We also ended up finding 191 wetlands. When we were looking at our riparian inventory, we looked from the center line of a creek out 200 feet. So just within 200 feet of either side, of these streams, just has 191 wetlands. When we went through and did that kind of special kind of review of the wetlands to make sure which ones are performing high functions that we really want to make sure to protect, we found that 96 of them fell into that category. That's almost 300 acres of wetlands that are providing a huge habitat. Just to walk you all through, because I know this map is not great right now. The idea being that this first map is a screenshot from Pringle Creek in South Salem. Here's Fairview Park. What we were able to do is in this checkered area, that's how far that we looked at and collected data for. All of these kind of purple lines are areas that are fish-bearing streams. The red dashed line here means that these are non-fish-bearing streams. When we're thinking about how we're going to protect wetlands and what we're proposing to do from code language, we're focused just on our fish-bearing streams and wetlands that fall within 50 feet of them. So this wetland complex here meets those criteria, and we end up bumping out our protections around it, which you can see through this green area. These other two wetlands that you can see don't fall within that category and aren't protected. Same with this section of stream where we have wetlands on either side. Because it's not fish bearing, we're not planning on protecting it right now. But because we have all of this data, say if this culvert right here was get replaced, all of it does become fish bearing, we would then be able to provide those same protections on this area.
Okay.
Similarly, a West Salem example, this is Chandler Nature Park. You can see there's a little green dot up here. That's a point where we actually had field staff go out and they've got soil tests. We know exactly what soil is in that wetland. We know what's going on there. And so all of that data is invaluable and stuff that we now have that we just didn't know beforehand. A little bit of so what this means now is one, like I mentioned, we have that open house on May 7th. If you all are interested in talking more or you're interested in seeing these maps in more detail, happy to have you. The goal is to be able to present kind of a brief overview of the Goal 5 process, and then to really allow folks, if they've got questions, to come over to 2 different areas where we'll have some big printed out maps, as well as the maps on computers. We can go right to their property if they're curious what's on my property or what's in this area that we're looking at. So we've got a 2-hour window that we're doing that on May 7th. Right now, we also have our reports that are at Department of State Lands being reviewed, and we're waiting for their approval. We plan on utilizing all of this data to help us create more comprehensive plans for how are we protecting our riparian areas, how are we tracking their health and things like that. And then ultimately, we're moving into phase 2, which is that code language updates. Now that is led by community planning and development. Myself and my staff are going to be helping them, but we're really handing off from the very heavy science part of things into the more code language part. Ultimately, what we're proposing to do right now is taking a little bit of a one-size-fits-all mindset into protections. It's called Safe Harbor, and the idea being that depending on the size of the stream, so for Salem, every stream except for the Willamette would get a 50-foot buffer on it. The Willamette would get a 75-foot buffer just because it's larger. And all the wetlands, like in the example here, wetland A, which looks like it's directly connected to the river, as well as wetland B, which is within 55 feet of the river, would get protections and would have that buffer extended. Wetland C, well, it's in the riparian area, is outside that 50-foot buffer, and so it wouldn't have protections. Ultimately, the basic idea around protections is they would require and provide restrictions on what kind of permanent alterations could happen to the riparian area, as well as what level of vegetation removal could happen. Like I mentioned, this is like our kind of our preliminary idea of what we're planning on doing. We're going to get a lot more into that in phase 2, a lot more of the specifics, the variances, and what we allow to happen in these areas, especially since Salem is doing this Goal 5 process fairly late in the game. We have areas that are almost fully developed around most of our major creeks already. And so how are we making sure that we're working around what's already there, not inhibiting things like that? And so that will be a process, and we're happy to come back and present on phase 2 with more specifics once that project is done. We're thinking towards the end of the year, we'll probably be able to have that done. And for those of you who are interested and on the Riparian Advisory Committee, we're happy to provide updates along the way as well. But that is a brief, high-level, super speed review of phase 1, and I'm happy to take questions.
So I remember when we talked about the riparian areas, it has the 50-foot been adjusted, because I thought I remembered a 75-foot was what we were looking at all the streams. Has that been brought down to 50?
So there are two ways that the state, when they're going through, when they say you can do the goal 5 process, that you can protect streams. You can either put their one size fits all category, which is safe harbor, for streams under a certain amount of flow. And for Salem, that's every creek except for the Willamette River. That'd be a 50-foot buffer. The Willamette would get a 75-foot buffer. If we wanted to go through the process of determining, actually, we think that's not enough, or we want them to be more variable depending on the habitat, you could go through that, but that would require an analysis on each type of stream that we have, looking at the specific type of vegetation that's growing there. And we'd end up with riparian areas and buffer zones that would look a lot more like this from parcel to parcel, rather than kind of a one size fits all blanket. And so what we're proposing right now is that one size fits all blanket, but there could be some level of kind of changes. For most other communities that have done this work already, they've used safe harbor as kind of their baseline and then implemented various other things to get kind of a little bit of a Frankenstein type of code language. And that's something that we could potentially be interested in looking at as well.
Again, I think that I have in Ward 2, there's a lot of my constituents who are right on the bank of so many places. And that I know that there is a great deal of concern that they're going to be potentially losing sort of property or having adjustments to their property. And so it'll be interesting to see what the public hearing presents, because there might be some concerns from individuals that are right next to a stream and how much of their backyard they might, and I hate to say lose, but have to have adjusted to meet these criteria.
And I appreciate that, and I hope they're able to attend the open house that we do have. I do want to be very clear that this will require no changes on properties that already have things built. We're not asking anybody, oh, you're
Okay.
gonna need to move
I
your
think
house
that's
or
what
your
gets
shed
everybody gets
or anything like that. It would be from the time that the code is adopted.
Got it.
There'd be a little bit more restrictions or regulations of, hey, I have a new property, I
Got
want to put my house right next to the creek. We'd say, hey, no.
Not a good idea.
Not a good idea. You can put that at least.
Can't do bad we didn't do it back in the 50s.
Yes, but like I said, we're not planning on doing, there's no kind of, there's no taking, there's nothing like
Okay.
that.
And I think, again, people get very worried
Yes.
when they hear, oh, you're gonna need a 75-foot buffer, and it's like, well, that's gonna be at my back porch.
It's the spirit of it is moving forward. We're trying to provide better standards for what we're putting out
Well
in
said.
these areas. But there will be variances and processes to work through, because we know that a one size fits all, here are the rules and regulations, doesn't fit every situation. So a variance process allows us to.
I will channel that calm
Yes.
percent to when I have people screaming at me.
So is that kind of line of thinking moving forward, is that true with the, I guess, restrictions on removal of vegetation in the riparian area as well? So for instance, if I have a house and it's on the river, whether I'm 50 feet or more, right? Historically, that's my backyard. I've always been using it. Obviously, I present it as my backyard. I use it as I please. So now all of a sudden, this riparian area goes in that says I can no longer remove as vegetation, possibly taking away my view of the river that I had before. So is that also kind of extended to people that already have their property?
So for the most part, the goal of that is to not have a new parcel of land that has a riparian area be kind of clear cut down. For the most part, we do in our tree codes right now have rules and regulations around you cannot remove trees in the riparian area without getting a permit. And usually what we're trying to do there is make sure that we have trees in these areas that are providing shade, that are providing kind of security for your stream bank so you're not losing it. We're planning on continuing with that, the tree codes and things like that, but we're not going, but aside from that, I don't anticipate that we'll be doing a lot more work around things like shrubs or invasive species that are more of that understory along the riparian areas that we tend to see.
So we're not gonna be restricting someone from cutting their grass in this riparian area or, okay, so.
Yeah, and I should say that for the most part, the vegetation that we're talking about is we're looking for like native natural vegetation. So A lot of our
Blackberries
trees.
can still be removed.
Blackberries can still be
Yeah.
removed like they can under our tree code right now.
Sure. And then, can I ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
So with the wetland inventory, so does this, and I'm kind of looking at it from a developer's perspective, so does this change the narrative for a developer as well? So does now our this wetland map that's been created work more like a FEMA flood map, where if the flood map says you're in a floodplain, then you either move forward with the concept that you're in a floodplain, or you do a LOMA to get out? Or does it be, so basically if you're not showing on that map that you're in a floodplain, then you don't have to worry about it? Is it the same on this wetland? They don't need to do an independent assessment on properties to determine whether they're in a wetland? If it says on there they're not, then they don't need to do the independent assessment.
No, so what this map will be doing is kind of like that first step, you're a developer, you're looking at properties. Where are ones that have wetlands? They're still gonna be required to, even if a wetland is shown here, go through a formal process of getting a wetland delineation done, having it approved by the state, but at least it gives them a heads up front that maybe they can plan for and budget and schedule that. It's mostly like some of our other external facing maps where you can look, where's the sewer line, where are the water lines, but we still want people to make sure they're double checking, and that would still be a state requirement.
Okay. And even on properties that the wetland map didn't show that it was a wetland area?
Yes, and there will likely be properties, because we didn't go and walk every single mile of every single thing, where there's gonna be 11 that we don't have mapped. And we'll add those to our inventory as we get them in, but it's not 100%. We're not saying this is 100% where all the wetlands are, but this gives everybody a better idea of this is where we think wetlands are, and now apparent next to riparian areas, there is still that likelihood that there could be wetlands in this area, as well as upland wetlands on any property.
To add on that, will the wetlands that are identified as C be on the map anyway?
So we do, and we have been, especially since Department of State Lands started providing information to us on wetlands that they're mapping through their GIS. We have wetland maps that our GIS team, every time a new wetland delineation gets approved by the state, we add it to our map. So those are citywide throughout the whole area. We still plan on doing that through these areas. Like I mentioned, whether it's a sea or it's a wetland on a non-fish bearing stream right now that could potentially come fish bearing in the future. We want to make sure we're capturing all that data. So we're still mapping all of that. A wetland like the one in C on the picture, though, just wouldn't be protected under these Goal 5 regulations. There are a number of wetland specific regulations that protect them differently, but it doesn't give them kind of that 50-foot buffer that we proposed.
Sure, that makes sense. The reason and this would be available to whoever's developing the property. Okay, because I've heard some horror stories in the past about houses that have gone in and then because they were on a spring or whatever, and then the basement's flooding, et cetera. And so I'm thinking if folks know ahead of time before they build there, thinking about liability, et cetera, if they're aware that there's already an issue there, I feel that's important. So I'm glad it's gonna be on the maps.
And like I mentioned, the goal is for this to be kind of the first phase. Somebody looks at this and you get a better understanding. This still requires all developers and folks doing things to do their own due diligence, getting that wetland survey if they find that there are wetlands on sites and things like that.
Okay. And then adding on to kind of, we were asking about removal of vegetation. I'm thinking again about liability, et cetera. Since we have a tree code that protects some things, but there are other areas that aren't protected, or if folks take out some of the natural vegetation that is keeping streams from flooding and cleaning the streams, et cetera. I'm thinking of, for instance, Goldcrest Brook and the erosion that we have and the challenges there are with the channel that it's dug and what needs to be done. Who's liable for damages then? I mean, has that ever come up? About some of the impacts for removing the things that reduce some of the effects of this increased flooding that we're having and these explosive storms, whatever.
That is a good question that I do not know the answer to. I'm happy to talk, especially with our legal staff, to see if they've got any kind of knowledge and information.
I'll just kind of throw that out there, just kind of bouncing around too, is both sides, the pros and cons of both ways. You don't necessarily need to bring it back. I just wanted to throw that out there. How is this dovetailing with our recent adoption of the floodplain species assessment and its functionality?
Yeah, so this is an exciting opportunity for us to make sure that all of those rules, regulations, different codes that are coming from different places are working together. Ultimately, I think we want to make sure that our code language, especially around protecting riparian areas, is clear, is understandable for developers, for the public to be able to walk through. And so because the community development and planning team are the ones leading this effort, and their group are also the ones who are working on the new FEMA stuff, they're working really closely together to make sure that all of that is incorporated, that they're building off of each other and say the same things, and we don't have two codes that kind of point in opposite directions.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that. And lastly, I'm looking forward to the public meeting. I'm only gonna be able to be there for about the first hour, but I'm looking forward to being there. You mentioned that there were around 100 landowners, property owners that gave permission for folks to come on. If there's a way you could send them an email or a personal invitation to the meeting, because one of the things that I discovered when I was doing a lot of stream surveys for listed fish, for example, the landowners always appreciated finding out what we found on their property. And they would give us permission year after year, and it really helped to let them know what we found, how many reds there. They were excited to see what was in the streams and the areas behind their homes.
Absolutely. And one of the kind of cool resources we have, because we've got a whole stormwater group that has interns that walk through the streams every summer, is we do have a streamside specific property owners kind of database that they get specific mailers, they get specific newsletters, and this kind of public house, open house is directly put in there as well for them to get that information. So
Thank you.
yeah.
Okay. Great. Excellent update.
Can I have
Go ahead.
a follow-up?
Yeah, please
off
do.
of one of Counselor Varney's comments about, I don't know, again, because you didn't, the studies weren't always able to get on all the properties. What I learned with the recent flooding in December is that part of the problem with flooding is that it's may not be bushes and trees that are in the way, but maybe a wall along somebody's property that maybe they put up a cement wall so that, again, they might not see flooding, but now it's constricting the water from being able to be absorbed as it's pushing its weight down, way down. And so speaking to liabilities or potential requiring people to remove, but it sounds like you're gonna try to not have those forced regulations. And again, I'm asking you when you don't know.
Yeah, that is too.
That's now, but like I mentioned at the open house and the riparian advisory committee, we're planning on trying to get as much feedback and information as possible about these scenarios specifically, or these one-offs, to make sure that we have a holistic and comprehensive understanding of what the issues are and what ways that this code might work and help those, what ways that it might hinder, and things that we can do. At the end of the day, it's probably not going to be a perfect solution for everybody, but making sure that we've at least thought about and put inside mechanisms to be able to respond to those things as.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so very much. Appreciate it. That's great. We always have great information. Okay, next on the agenda. Let's see, Dr. Seaways. Remember all of our questions and things from before? I don't know how much. Oh boy, we don't have tons of time. Is that what I have, or did I take it
No,
off?
I'm sorry, you took the wrong one.
Oh, I took the wrong one. Sorry about that. I forgot to cross it off of here. So implementation update, that's right, that's right.
It gave me a heart attack for a second.
No. Okay. So climate action plan implementation updates. So how are we doing?
Juliana Douglas, Climate Action Plan Manager. Thank you all so much for your time today. So for the first quarter, there was progress on 7 of the 11 approved CAP tasks in the work plan. And I attended 2 outreach events on those items, and I'm gonna move you guys real quick. So if you'd like to follow along on the Municipal Energy Master Plan, instead of printing out a bunch of copies, you all had received emails with the PDF, and there's a QR code if anyone would like to follow along as we are going. And I'm gonna move this back real quick. Apologies on that. Okay, so the municipal energy master plan we went over back in December, and this is just coming back as they've finalized that document. So allowing folks to have any questions. The major categories in the municipal energy master plan include funding, baseline conditions, opportunities to reduce consumption, scenario-based analysis, and opportunities to increase resiliency. For the funding, there's really 3 buckets. The buckets are financing alternatives. So the first one in this list is energy savings performance contracting. That's when you basically have a company that helps you budget out paying over a long term on efficiency improvements done in the immediate term. And so it's using kind of girl math to pay for what you're going to be doing in the future. And so you get that savings from the energy efficiency and you pay back over time. Green revolving fund is the same exact thing as energy savings performance contracting, but it's funded internally. So you pay yourself back over time. And then bonds, pretty general, you can do them specifically for energy efficiency improvements. And then CPACE, the only time that this would work is if the city or county adopted a CPACE program, and then it would only be eligible for private entities. And so when would this apply for a city? Well, we lease plenty of our properties. And so if any of those organizations chose to use CPACE, they could use CPACE funding, and we would be one of the beneficiaries of that. So a great example of that is WVCC. Next bucket is federal opportunities. So these are a lot of grants. We have the IRA clean energy tax credits, which we are looking into for the Marion Parkade solar project, but they could be available for some other projects as well. Department of Energy grants, and then the GRIP, or Grid Resilience and Innovation Partnerships, or BRIC, Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities, because the federal government loves their cute little nicknames. So those are options as well. And then there are incentives, rebates, and technical assistance programs. I want to shout out the engineering and facilities staff. They do a phenomenal job with working with Energy Trust of Oregon early and often. We do really get the most out of all of the programs that they offer, and we do collaborate very well with that organization. And then utility incentive programs. That for the most part is captured in Energy Trust of Oregon, but there are some off branches of that here and there. Oregon Department of Energy grants. So we've been the recipient of a few of those, including for solar on this building for $1 million. And we've worked with the State Energy Program Technical Assistance, and then Energy Star and Better Buildings. Those are US Department of Energy, and they are one of the items that's sometimes on the chopping block, but we really hope that it's not, because they provide phenomenal technical assistance and programs and platforms that are really helpful to what we're trying to do. So that's one that if it went away, it would be a pretty big blow. This next graph is a new one to kind of show where our energy is being used and how it's being used. And I just want to caveat this with, we don't have a perfect subset of, if we're talking about all of our buildings, what buckets things go into. A really phenomenal example of that is building 14 is parks, and it's mail services, and so it kind of fits in a bunch of different areas. But so this is kind of best we could delineate things. And if you look at the size of the polka dots, the bigger the size, the more square footage in those types of buildings. Smaller the size, the less square footage. And then on the y-axis, it's the cost of energy, and on the x-axis, it's the consumption of energy. And that's normalized for both kilowatts or electricity and therms. And some of the interesting things in here, transportation has a lot of square footage. And that's because in transportation, we have parking garages. They take up a lot of square footage, but they don't use that much energy because not much of it is closed off. Administration has a much smaller square foot space. However, some of our administrative things that consume a lot of energy are our servers and our technology and all of the cooling that it takes to do that. And then civic, we have a bunch of fantastic historic sites that are not very efficient, but they serve a lot of great purposes. And we also have some of the bigger items like our library and our Center 50 Plus that count for those. So just an overview of our portfolio. And then this is one that we saw last time, but the consultants gave us a 3-phase approach for what we could do and what those benefits would look like and how that would start. And so years 1 to 3 would be kind of the low-hanging fruit. That would be the LED retrofits, controls optimizations, plug load management, and some initial solar. Again, they wanted us to be able to benefit from some of the federal programs that are going away. And look at some of the critical storage sites. Years 5 to 10, that's going to be looking at HVAC modernization. This means both heat pumps and VRF, which is variable refrigerant flow. Basically a bunch of heat pumps that piggyback off of each other. Very cool. If you have 30 minutes to go on a YouTube rabbit hole, it's fun to learn about. But basically, because you can't have heat pumps on super large buildings, it's a bunch of heat pumps that piggyback off of each other. The only downfall of that is you can't have different temperatures across. So you can't have one system in a heating and one system in a cooling. But it works for a lot of other situations. And envelope improvements, so that's everything from like insulation to improving windows and ceilings and things like that. Building automation system light, so that's where they can upgrade. It's not adding building automation systems to, for instance, some of our historic buildings. Targeted solar and storage and high priority areas. And then finally, the last part of that pathway to net zero is 10 to 25 years out, and that's portfolio scale electrification. So upgrading from natural gas to electric and PV canopies, rooftops, battery storage, and microgrid readiness. So that is kind of like all the way to net zero. And just want to point out, Councillor Matthews, your comment last time was taken very seriously, and we have it added in its own special graph here. So we did. So we looked at what those different upgrades were, what the efficiency would be, what the approximate cost is, what the energy savings would be, and what that would look like on a yearly basis. And then I think the last one is carbon. Yeah, so the last one is metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalency reduced.
Can I ask just a
Yes.
quick question? The LED lighting, is that indoors or is that also outdoors or around the building?
So this one would encompass all of that. This is the municipal energy master plan, so it doesn't include streetlights, but if it's
It does or doesn't?
it does not.
Does not, okay, thank you.
But this can be applied kind of like,
Okay,
it would also benefit streetlights in that same type of way. Streetlights are a little bit tricky though, because of the way that they are, they aren't metered. And so you actually pay for them as if they are on the whole time. So they have a different rate structure.
is that
Wow.
true for some office buildings as well?
If it is a streetlight, if it is attached to your meter, then no, it's metered. But a lot of our streetlights are nowhere near a meter, so they just assume that's on. So if you have a streetlight out, please let us know, because otherwise we are paying for it and we don't know, and we could
Wow.
have it be on.
Yes, when you think private, like any parking lot.
Yes,
here,
yeah.
That's all on the meter for the building.
It is all on the meter for
Yeah.
the building, okay.
Specific right of way, streets, that's the stuff that she's talking about, that's separate, so, but any other private facility that has parking lots and internal transportation networks, that's all on their internal meters.
Part of the reason I'm asking is I know that I get calls or emails from constituents asking me to tell a business to turn their lights off at night because they feel it's wasting energy, and that also sometimes it can bother them because they may live nearby, and why are those lights on? And I have heard that this response is it costs the same for them to keep them on and than it does by having them out some of the time. And so that's, I was just trying to understand if LED lighting has some sort of mechanism where a business is paying for energy efficiency, but told to leave their lights on.
So I can get back to you on that. I know that PGE and Salem Electric both have rate structures for street lighting, and I don't know if they're offered to
Inside the
entities
building.
other than the city for
Okay.
like if your parking lot needs street lighting. So I can get back to you on.
I'm actually talking also about inside the building.
Oh, inside the building.
Yeah, not they're upset about
They're
the
metered.
the parking lights when there's nobody parking there, but also they're concerned about the lights inside the building. And the building owners will say, we'll do it because it's energy savings.
Having lights on is still having lights on. It's still consuming energy.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question about that slide there? So, and I should have apparently done this QR code so I can follow along, because I'm wondering, so with these, and I don't remember the order of what we were doing, kind of phase one, I know that was on the slide prior. But like looking here, so obviously LED lighting upgrades makes a ton of sense. You pretty much make your money back within a year to 2 years. I think HVAC, I'm a little less, like, I'm a little more, I guess, curious on the approximate capital range and where that is in our process. So like we were to do the HVAC heat pump VRF replacement and it ends up being closer to the 2 million section. We're not really making our money back for, is that 10 years or so, maybe a little more, if it ends up being the 2 million side. Ultimately to a point where several of the heat pumps and everything are gonna be at their life expectancy by that point. So then where does that, I guess, factor into our decision on whether on prioritizing these projects out?
Yeah, excellent question. And I think that I have the worst answer for you. I'm sorry, but it depends.
Okay.
There are some buildings that are up for upgrades, and so the fact that they could get a more efficient system, that incremental cost more could be really worth it, and it would be on the lower end because like you're already slating for that upgrade. So that's kind of where it would fit in the best. And I certainly would not recommend a whole cloth approach of we just upgrade everything, because you have a lot of use and embedded carbon that's already in those systems.
Right.
And it would be best to get more use out of them. And we also aren't fluid of money in a way that
Oh,
we
yeah.
could just
Yeah.
do those types of whole cloth upgrades. But where they fit in together could be really cool, because the energy savings performance contracting
Yeah.
model, it really hinges on having the different types of upgrades that have different types of paybacks.
Gotcha.
So looping in your LED upgrades with your HVAC upgrades is kind of quintessential to how those programs work. And so if you can have like quick payoffs along with these long-term payoffs, it does make a package more appealing to the
Makes
energy
sense.
savings contractors.
Perfect. So when we're looking at that previous slide that talks about our phases and kind of our timelines for those, we're not really actually saying within 5 to 10 years, we will have all HVAC replaced unless an HVAC system comes online of actually needing replaced in that 5 to 10 years. So if we just did an HVAC, or for whatever reason, an HVAC is going to last us for 15, we wouldn't force it into phase 2 just because the phase says we're going to do it.
Yeah, no, this is more of like
And overall,
a
That's-
very general timeline of like when we would like to start implementing things. And again, the LED retrofits, you start getting that payback quicker. So if you do that, you can have more benefit of the
Right.
lower cost for longer.
No, that makes sense.
Great question though.
Makes sense, yep.
And then this next one, there was some confusion on what the different scenarios were regarding. So business as usual, that's gonna be looking at an overall load increase both along electricity and natural gas. Efficiency only would look at reducing loads for both electricity and gas by having more efficient upgrades, efficiency and electrification. This one's looking at fuel switching for natural gas. And so it is looking at having the items that are switched be more efficient than the existing natural gas items. However, there would be an increase in electricity energy because of that fuel switching. And then finally, there's the integrated resilience and renewables. So this is looking at the same demand as the electrification and renewables offset. So that's more of just like a resilience measure. So with all that being said, they are not cumulative. So this would get us a pathway to net zero. And then that is a graph showing where they all meet individually. And they can all be done piecemeal. This is all a framework, so we don't have to do anything, but this is giving us what the different pathways could look like, and they can mix together in ways that aren't outlined explicitly in this portfolio. And I'm gonna move Christian again real quick, sorry. There we go. I hope that you don't have to see this as well, I'm sorry. But we do have those baselines change as an increase when it's with the business as usual. And then we see the decreasing across both for efficiency only, efficiency and electrification. We see an increase from a -5 to a 0, and then completely reducing the natural gas. Yes, so those are the pieces there.
Right, can we go back to that? Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm not sure I fully understand. So when it says like efficiency plus electrification, natural gas, that would be if we left everything on natural gas. No, if we took all natural gas away, we would see a reduction of 20% of our energy consumption. Is that what I'm reading?
No, efficiency only is looking at the changes in the energy consumption as a portfolio of our energy costs. If we only improve the efficiency of our current equipment.
Walk me through a single line. For whatever reason, I'm not understanding.
An example would be, yeah.
So let's say that we're looking at Center 50 plus, and I'm saying this because I know that they have both electricity and natural gas. So let's say that we're looking at Center 50 plus, and we are doing the efficiency only. So that would be looking at some envelope upgrades. So that would be maybe getting tints on the windows to reduce their thermal load. It might be looking at some other like insulation. And then it would be looking at when they upgrade to more efficient HVAC and things like that. If we are looking at the efficiency and electrification, if we are upgrading, it would be to improve that efficiency, but it would also be fuel switching for all of the items in there. And so I think that they have some items in their kitchen that are on natural gas, and they have a natural gas fireplace insert in the foyer. So I think that it would be those things switching to electric. And then the final one would be adding probably solar and storage. Is that?
Yeah, and so the 25 and the 45, you're basically saying, that's the part I'm more confused about, I guess. So like at the efficiency and electrification, natural gas -25% for 20 to 30 change, minus 25, or sorry, minus 45 for the 35 change. You're saying that that would be the overall energy consumption?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Sorry, we're moving again. And then opportunities to increase resiliency. They pulled out, I think 6 different locations, and they had ideas on what could be done. And so here they're looking at the library and about how much solar it would need to offset about 36 hours of usage. And I just want to point out that we do already have some solar on the library, so it would be adding to that solar canopy. But that is kind of what they were looking at a few different locations. So that is the municipal energy master plan. Are there any additional questions, comments?
So what is this showing here, Juliana, with these graphs?
Yes, so I'm sorry, I didn't bring my glasses today. Let me just look a little bit closer. So I believe it's green line is the battery use.
The green
So-
line with the dots are the
Yes.
battery
Yeah.
use. And then
And
the
then-
green line outage, green line straight is outage load.
Yes, so the battery use would be happening in the hours off of the sunlight. So it starts at midnight and it goes till midnight of a couple days later, or noon of a couple days later. And it's showing that overnight it would be using that battery. Is showing that the PV or the solar canopy array production would be happening most during the day, and that the usage of the building is also happening most during the day. And when it's not, it would be using the battery use. So that usage line tracks perfectly with the battery use when it's overnight and there's no PV production. And then you see that drop down when there is solar production.
And that's typically a day and a half that it's showing.
Yes.
Something.
Kind of just a conceptual question. It's actually about the slide before again, because my mind was still on that one. So back to the efficiency plus electrification. How is it possible to have a 45% reduction in natural gas consumption, which would assume then that we have to give all of that energy allocation over to electrification, but only have a 5% increase in electrification actual energy usage?
Yes, that has also been a sticking point for a lot of folks, so it's not just you, I promise. But that is because it's got that efficiency in it, so it would be using more efficient. When you switch out, you'd be using a more efficient version. So the amount of energy needed would be less, regardless of what type of energy is being used.
Okay. Like if I take a 98% efficient gas furnace and replace it out with electric, but the 2% of the gas furnace that's inefficient, I guess, is the part that we would be replacing it.
I get what you're saying. I think that we're on the same page. I think that my terminology is just a little bit off from that, but I think that if I'm tracking you, you're saying that the efficiency would be the offset of that energy usage. It wouldn't be that it was. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. I guess that's also what I'm trying to figure out. I guess the assumption here is that we have incredibly inefficient gas appliances currently. Like I know that like my furnace has a 98% efficiency rating.
Oh, okay.
And so if I'm looking at, it's only a 2% rating that would be quote unquote inefficient. So even switching over to electric, I would assume could only really, let's assume the electric was 100% efficient. It would still only be a 2% remainder that I could really gain in efficiency.
Yeah, it's because of the other items that you would be doing along with that. So when you're upgrading from sorry, let me think on this.
Well, we don't have to do it right now either. You can explain to me offline too. It's only because it's gonna be part of our master plan. I just want to make sure I have a clear understanding of like what our objectives are and how much
we're really gonna save in that long run on each one of these.
So it is an increase. It's not 0% because it's looking at over time, there would be other efficiency measures done for some of the electric work as well. So it's actually, there's a bigger change in electric than there is shown here, but the change in gas is the one that's shown the most. The change in electric is being absorbed by the change in gas. I think I explained that well enough that I can understand.
Okay.
Did that translate to what you're hearing as well?
I think we could write something up and share
Okay.
it.
But
It's
that-
confusing to me too.
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be helpful.
Any other comments?
No, other than I wanted to ask you, since it's already 2:33.
Well, I'm so sorry.
Oh, no. I just was wondering if the rest of these, since they're updates on where we are, could we move them to the next meeting?
Yeah.
Or are there particular pieces we need to hear about today?
I think that the only one that I want to share today is the solid waste policy because that will be finished before our next meeting.
Okay,
Uh,
well, yeah, I appreciate that because at the solid waste committee, let's say we met and discussed the waste reduction policy portion in February, and then in March, we decided we wanted to go out for some public input. And yeah, I'd appreciate some information on that. And then we didn't have a solid waste committee meeting
This
this
month.
month.
So,
Yeah,
Yeah,
So-
and so this will be at our May meeting.
okay.
Yeah, so the solid waste committee had asked me to come up with a kind of overarching policy of helping us align our city goals with a waste reduction framework. They wanted it to be aligned with the state programs and very notably, they wanted it to be ambitious, but theoretically achievable. And so that was marching orders that I got, and this is what I came up with from that.
You did great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And we wanted it to provide the framework for future decisions to support funding, like grant applications, really like when there are policies behind items, and reductions in cost for landfilling. So we came up with a few metrics, and we have interim goals of 125% of the baseline for 2030, 105 for 2035, 78 for 2040, and to meet the 2050 goal of 56% the baseline of 2016. So just to kind of give that in a little bit more detail of what that looks like, this is the historic here we go. This is the historic data on waste generation, and we can see that we have notably a lot more in 2021, and that's due to the wildfires. But other than that, it tracks pretty closely with when there are economic recessions. There's a reduction in pounds per capita disposed, and then we have the 2016 baseline is that orange line. And then the goals, so what we're looking at to start is to kind of write that current trajectory that we're on, have it dip, and then continue that decrease over time, whereas the projection is a increase over time. So that's what we're trying to avoid. Just a little bit more detail on
I'm
it.
just pointing out, this is Marion County, not just the city.
Yes, we don't have disaggregated data to do any tracking on a city of Salem basis.
Right.
And then the priorities in this are waste prevention, promoting circular economy, so reduce, reuse, recycle, reducing waste of concern, so that's electronic waste, food waste, textile waste, looking at meeting the state requirements, and some of the environmental considerations include wanting to be mindful of environmental justice communities and to minimize the occurrence of those. So this is kind of an overview of the solid waste policy. The committee is looking for additional comments and feedbacks. They will reconvene on the 21st of May And so if anyone has additional comments, please send those to franchise@cityofsalem.net.
And I understand that there have been several comments, not all necessarily around the policy, but more about questions on other things, so we'll address those at the solid waste
Yes.
meeting.
That's what I've heard as well. And I can have everything else in the next CAP committee meeting.
Well, again, Juliana, I'll tell you, thank you. I know that this was not easy in the request to try to find a way to write policies that we recognize may be difficult to achieve, but at the same time, at least we have a direction that hopefully will go down and see if we can improve, the recycling and food waste management and go from there. Made me think that what we also need to do is encourage some training or opportunities at Center 50 Plus. And that would be a good educational center to help those seniors to reduce so that they can have the every other week 20-gallon,
There you go.
reduce their costs. Yeah.
Now, this is fantastic. Thank you. I'm sorry for making additional work for you for asking for interim goals. That was one of my requests,
you're
to
the-
see how we were doing. To put it into, I had a thing here. So for the 2050 goal, 56%, but estimated waste reduction, 1 pound per capita per day current to meet the 2030 goal. That's only
Yes.
1 pound per day per capita.
I better start checking, I better start weighing.
And then the next one is
Just
2
back
pounds by 2040, and then 2.2 pounds hit the 2050 goal. So you put that in, you're not gonna reduce, that's a pound a day though. Yeah, that's a lot. Okay, anyway. Yeah, I appreciate the quick update. All right, any questions on it? Are you okay if we put everything off the rest of the updates until our next meeting?
Sounds great to me.
Okay, I wanted to make sure. Okay, because I know we all have things we're running off to do. So our next meeting is actually June 15th, 2026. Thank you all for being here, and the meeting's adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Meredith, thank you for mentioning, I know this is on here, Chandler.